Most World's Fairs were built to astonish briefly, then disappear. Entire cities of towers, pavilions, fountains, and futuristic dreams rose for a season, drew millions of visitors, then dissolved into memory. But one great exposition city refused to disappear. Balboa Park in San Diego still stands. Long before these buildings became museums, gardens, and civic landmarks, they were part of a temporary exposition city built at the edge of the continent. A dream of California, empire, beauty, and the future. And against all odds, it survived. I'm Mark Schauer, and this is Dispatches from the Lost Republic. For more than a century, World's Fairs served as laboratories of national ambition. Temporary cities devoted to spectacle, invention, and optimism. They promised that the future was arriving, and arriving soon. And for decades, the United States commemorated those visions on postage stamps, not merely as souvenirs, but as miniature declarations of national confidence. The great turning point came in Chicago in 1893. The world's Columbian Exposition introduced millions of Americans to electric illumination, monumental architecture, and a carefully curated vision of modern civilization. It also transformed American philately. The Columbian stamps became the first great American commemorative series. The fair itself was temporary, but the stamps endured. 8 years later, Buffalo hosted the Pan-American Exposition. Its stamps celebrated steamships, railroads, bridges, and the technological marvels of a new century. Yet the fair is remembered today for a darker reason. President William McKinley was assassinated while greeting visitors there. The exposition became both a celebration of progress and a monument to tragedy. St. Louis followed in 1904. The Louisiana Purchase Exposition celebrated a century of American expansion, all westward, while simultaneously commemorating the fallen McKinley. By 1933, in the depths of the Great Depression, Chicago returned with a remarkably confident title, A Century of Progress. Millions came to see streamlined architecture, fluorescent lighting, and homes of the future. Even during economic collapse, Americans still imagined tomorrow as something larger and brighter than today. New York pushed that optimism even further in 1939. Its Trylon and Perisphere became symbols of the technological future just over the horizon. Visitors encountered television, air conditioning, and General Motors' Futurama, a vision of superhighways and suburbs that would largely become reality after the Second World War. Then came Seattle. The Century 21 Exposition of 1962 imagined the space age. The Space Needle rose above a fair devoted to tomorrow. Visitors encountered monorails, communications technology of the future, and visions that seemed limitless. Of all the post-war fairs, Seattle may be the easiest to recognize today because so much of it survived. The Space Needle still stands. The monorail still runs. Millions continue to visit what was once a temporary vision of tomorrow. New York returned in 1964 beneath the Unisphere. 50 million visitors came to see the future. Ford unveiled the Mustang. Disney introduced It's a Small World. The fair radiated Cold War confidence, yet something had changed. The crowds came, but the fair lost money. The old exposition formula was beginning to lose its hold on the American imagination. And that brings us to San Diego. Balboa Park never entirely disappeared. San Diego's officially unsanctioned exposition of 1915 stood far from the traditional centers of American power. Yet the city constructed an extraordinary fantasy landscape. Spanish colonial towers, arcades, gardens, bridges, and courtyards, assembled into a romantic vision of the American Southwest. The Panama-California Exposition celebrated the opening of the Panama Canal and the growing importance of the Pacific world. But what makes Balboa Park remarkable is not merely that it existed, it's that it remained. Inspired by Chicago's Century of Progress, San Diego revived the grounds for a second exposition in 1935. New buildings appeared beside the old. The Ford Building, the old Globe Theater, new exhibits imported from Chicago itself. And the exposition found its way onto an American stamp. Scott number 773 depicted the California Tower and Cabrillo Bridge, symbols of a fairground that had somehow escaped disappearance. That persistence matters because World's Fairs were always about more than architecture. They were civilizations attempting to imagine themselves into the future. And perhaps that is what the old World's Fair stamps preserve best. Fragments of a civilization that once believed architecture, technology, and public spectacle could elevate ordinary life. I'm Mark Schauer, and this is Dispatches to Lost Republic.